Hello, friends. Are you ready to hear the rest of the tale? Then let us commence. When last we left our intrepid band of weirdos, they had just returned from a terrifying though ultimately productive trip to Sigil's Mnemosyne quarter, and were now going to look into just what in the multiverse led to them ending up unconscious and in stasis tanks on a crashing airship just like less than a week earlier. Deciding not to overthink it, the heroes paid a visit to the best place to start their investigation, the airship crash site at the edges of the Hive. While only a few days old, what once had been a scene of destruction had already been substantially repaired and cleaned up, with the surrounding city repaired by the Darbus. Still, there was wreckage and debris, and clues to be found. While it was difficult to pick through the site without being detected by the Debus, the Harmonium, or the Mercy Killers, the heroes were able to speak with many locals who had witnessed the crash, or at the very least dealt with the aftermath. As such, they soon discovered the name of the airship, the Dapper Horizon. Oh, that's a fetching name for a vessel, innit? I mean, if you had to find yourself detained against your will and submerged in a strange and horrific stasis chamber for a lost period of time on an airship, that would be the bbest name for it, wouldn't it? Anyway, more important, seemingly, was the name of a salvager, who locals saw make off with various loot from the crash. A Leonin woman named Dr. Saja Lev. Tracking Dr. Lev to her apartment, the heroes discovered the place tossed, but there was no sign of the doctor. The same went for her nearby research space, although a strange substance, later discovered to be ectoplasm, was recovered. It seemed that someone else was looking for Dr. Lev as well, and someone much less savory, and less alive, it would seem, than our heroes. Also, among Dr. Lev's scattered and upset belongings, the heroes found the business card of one Rylance Hook, a paranormal investigator, in Dr. Lev's research space, and decided it was a lead worth pursuing. Just as they were leaving, the landlord of the research space and his son Tim came by. The heroes asked a few questions about Dr. Lev, but weren't able to get any information. The landlord asked the heroes to tell Dr. Lev, if they found her, that he was worried for her safety after all of this. Hook's office was in the clerk's ward, and the heroes paid a visit. When our intrepid band encountered Hook, a suave and charismatic individual to say the least, the investigator came across as a little standoffish and a lot suspicious of them. They asked the heroes what their business was with Dr. Lev, and that she was under their protection. After the heroes reassured Rylance that they meant Dr. Lev no ill, and explaining that they were only interested in information about the Dapper Horizon because they had been trapped in stasis chambers on board with no idea how they got there, Dr. Lev showed herself. Dr. Lev explained that she had learned of strange and suspicious people asking after her around the neighborhood and pursuing her. Finding her apartment ransacked, she fled to her research space to hide. The space had also been robbed, but not to the extent of her apartment. Soon after, she was attacked by demons and devils and barely escaped with her life. It was then she sought out Rylance to get the resolute paranormal investigator's protection. It was here that our heroes relayed the message that Dr. Lev's landlord and his son were worried about her, and that was when she informed them that her landlord didn't have a son. And just as everyone was having one of those spine-tingling moments when all of the chilling little pieces were just one by one falling into place, the son, Tim, if you remember, arrived at Rylance's office. So, yeah, that was creepy full stop. As you've no doubt realized already, Tim was the first of several demons and devils that had arrived to attack Dr. Lev, for whatever as yet unknown reasons, and soon a massive and harrowing brawl broke out in Rylance's office, while things seemed to be going south rather quickly, with, you guessed it, Varys and Braze getting knocked out. The heroes, with the help of Rylance and Dr. Lev, managed to best the fiends and save most of Rylance's office as well. And if you were wondering, yes, it was an incredibly chic and well-decorated office, all with one of those awesome huge round windows in a turret overlooking a square, and a bunch of really interesting but not ostentatious curiosities and antiques. After the battle, Dr. Lev revealed that she had found a solar egg in the debris from the Dapper Horizon crash, and that had probably been what the fiends had been after. Unfortunately for them, and Dr. Lev too, it would turn out, the egg had been stolen from the Leonin's research space. Huh. You don't think the fiends were a part of the same faction of fiends that had been attacking the airship and battling that other force of paladin and angel types, do you? Come to think of it, that had been a group of devils and demons working together as well, hadn't it? Anyway, hoping to learn more and help Dr. Lev, The heroes handed over the sample of ectoplasm they had found at the doctor's research space. Rylance explained that they knew some people who could analyze the sample and promised to get back to the heroes with any findings. Rylance, for their part, gave the heroes something they had discovered during their investigations of the egg: the Dapper Horizons shipping manifest. This was a huge lead, obviously, and the heroes couldn't thank Rylance enough. Parting ways with the dashing investigator and leonine artificer, the friends found a place to hunker down and study the document. The main takeaways, as far as they could tell, were: 1. The Dapper Horizon was an airship operating for the Outlands Planar Shipping Company, a subsidiary of Prestige Planar Wide. 2. It was heading for Tark's cargo halls, where our heroes, as cargo, were to be dropped off. 3. It wasn't clear from the manifest whether stasis tanks had been loaded on the ship, so it was also not clear where they may have come from. Despite being buoyed on by this rather substantial breakthrough in figuring out just what in Baldur's Gate had happened to them, the heroes were still able to be distracted by a local fighting circle's open battle call and the promise of a prize of gold. Never change, my friends. Never change. So it was that Regal entered the contest of fisticuffs and won. Pretty easily, actually. And so our heroes made themselves a nice bag of shiny. Approaching the heroes after watching the fights, a minotaur named Balg, representing the House of Unbroken Rings, also known on the streets as the Ringers, an infamous crime syndicate run by a beholder named Great Herrigal, offered them a job and told them to meet him the next afternoon at the halfling pub Bits and Bobs. A winner's purse and a major job offer. All in one outing. Ha! Well, it seems our hero's luck is really turning round, and I have to say, I am really happy to see it. Also, in between the fights and job offers, Minko tailed a strange ghostly girl who had been spying on the group from afar, following her through the combat pit grounds, but eventually losing her in the crowd. The next day, the heroes headed to Tark's cargo halls, following up on the lead from the shipping manifest. Using some stealth and subterfuge, and maybe even a little guile and skullduggery, plus an ample application of the manifest, Drogon and Minko managed to uncover some more leads. Good ones, too. Our heroes learned a lot, actually. Here's what they found. 1. That their tanks were to be released at Dr. Medrix's and/or Archon Rel's authority and sent to Bedlam, aka the Gatehouse, home of the Bleak Cabal. 2. That their tanks were loaded onto the Dapper Horizon at Sylvania, the outland city and gateway to the plain of Arborea. 3. Due to the flighty nature of the Fae, who run the town, the bureaucracy around it all is a bit scattered, so it's unclear who really sent the tanks without actually investigating on the ground in Sylvania. 4. They also learned the solar egg, which was another piece of cargo on the airship, was procured by Silectis Planar Imports, and that Silectis has an office located in a building called the Duke's Palace in the Ladies' Ward. It had arrived from Excelsior, the outland gate town to the plain of Celestia, though it didn't seem to have originated from there, so once again it was unclear who really procured and/or sent the egg without actually investigating on the ground in Excelsior. That night, to celebrate I guess, the heroes spent another night at the inn observing the lonely candlelit room across the way, and it was still quiet and boring and empty. The next day, our friends met with Balg, the absolutely delightful Minotaur, at Bits and Bobs, and over a large hobbit-sized dinner they learned about the job offer from the Ringers. While exact details couldn't be shared until they officially took the job, they learned that it would entail them travelling to a town in the Outlands to retrieve a package, and then to bring said package safely back to Sigil. The full details would be learned when, and if, they took the job. After this, the heroes visited the Gatehouse aka Bedlam aka Sigil's insane asylum, and the headquarters of the Bleak Cabal to see if they could track down this Dr. Medrix or Archon Rel or both. After some poking around, they learned that Dr. Medrix was no longer working at the asylum and was currently missing, and a Dr. Ante had taken over her work. It also seemed that the Bleak Cabal was targeting Medrix by listing her as an escaped and dangerous patient, putting a sizable target on her back. Sneaking around inside the asylum didn't uncover many clues, and the heroes left the building frustrated. That was when they were approached by a janitor, who obviously had a huge crush on Medrix, who told the heroes that she had escaped to the sewers and was searching for an escaped patient herself. The heroes pursued into the sewers on the Trail of Medrix, a trail that eventually led them into the Undersigil, a bizarre and largely unknown series of catacombs and tunnels dug into the foundations of the city itself. Known also as the Realm Below, or the Labyrinth, it was a forsaken place full of forsaken people. Forsaken creatures too. I think we can all agree that this is another one of those times where I'm quite worried about our heroes. Quite worried indeed.